I think some people might go into the profession for the wrong reason. And I think it's like very important to abandon the simplistic view of law enforcement because it's so much more than that.
Welcome back to Listen to the Helpers, a podcast created by the Fred Rogers Institute to elevate the voices of helpers everywhere. Fred Rogers once said, "When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping.'" Today we're joined by Alecko Fekos, one of our students in the Fred Rogers Scholars Program. At the end of our episode today, stay tuned as Kenzie and I reflect on our discussion with Alecko in the context of Fred Rogers' legacy and our own work at the Fred Rogers Institute. Alecko, we're so happy to have you on this episode of Listen to the Helpers. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'd love to start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what class year you are, and what your major is at Saint Vincent.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. My name is Alecko Fekos. I'm a senior criminology and psychology double major. I have a minor in forensic sciences, and I'm from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. And right now, I'm a youth service worker at Adelphi Village.
Amazing. And what do you hope to do post graduation with that field of study? And it's okay that your plans will likely change, but that as of right now, what do you hope to do beyond graduation?
Yeah, so I want to at least get my master's degree in criminology. I don't know where exactly I'm going to go yet, but that's step one. And then eventually I want to get into law enforcement and then hopefully maybe become a detective or maybe like federal law enforcement would be very cool.
Wow, that's so interesting. I don't know if I've ever actually heard you talk about what you want to do post graduation, but that is a really dedicated career path that you have ahead of you, and I have no doubt that you'll do amazing things in that career path. But I'll be really excited to hear about that as you graduate and go into those next steps. Can you tell us a little bit more about your work at Adelphi right now that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm a youth service worker, and that's kind of vague, but basically, I work at a group home, and I right now we have about 15 male clients, and they're court ordered to be there. They're between the ages of 12 and 20, and basically, we provide a personalized support plan for them to kind of help them advance through the program and eventually have a successful reentry to society. So, like on a daily basis, they'll go to school, and then when they're in school, I'm also in school. So I'll work from 2 to 10, and basically, we just have like a group kind of therapy thing, and they get their medication, and we just I don't know, just try to have a successful day, no problems, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, wow. What are the like age ranges of the kids that you serve?
Yeah, so they can be from anywhere from 12 to 20, but my unit's a little bit older. So I would say they're probably on average like 17, but they're like between 15 and 20.
Oh wow. Okay. That's really interesting. And I'm sure like some days are harder than others, I'm sure, but um that I feel like knowing you through the Fred Rogers Scholars Program, I feel like you have like the mindset, the attitude, the temperament to be a really positive role in that space. So that's really cool to hear that work that you're doing. And speaking of being a scholar in the Fred Rogers Scholars Program, can you tell us a little bit about your experience so far as a scholar?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm coming up on 3 full years, which is kind of hard to believe, considering that I guess time's been flying. But the thing that's impacted me most throughout the scholars program is just my like kind of ability and opportunity to give back to the community. Like I've only been out in the Trobe for 4 years, but it's just been so great, and like I feel so integrated, and I feel like I can do so much, and like a large part of that is through the scholars program. So I'm very thankful for that, and it almost kind of feels like the neighborhood that Fred envisioned. Like so, it's really great to be able to do that.
And I love knowing that like you're taking the I love the way you said that first of all, like that this feels like the neighborhood that Fred like envisioned. And I love that you're taking like the neighborhood from the scholars and from SVC and like bringing it to your work with Adelphi and then hopefully beyond graduation too, but you're like spreading the neighborhood a little bit wider. So I love to hear that for sure.
And also, just how did you end up hearing about the scholars? Like, What made you want to join?
Yeah, so I heard about it through Andrew Root. He was my prefect my freshman year, and so yeah, he kind of served as a role model for me, I guess. I remember I would see him in the sweater, and I'd be like, "All right, what's up, man? Like, what's that about?" And in a good way, of course. But he was like, "Yeah, I'm a Fred Rogers scholar," and I looked more into it. And growing up in Pittsburgh, I had seen episodes as a kid, and I was like, you know what, like honestly, I'm not very involved right now. This seems like a great opportunity to do some good. And so I applied and I honestly didn't think I'd get in, but I'm very grateful that, that it's worked out.
You saying that like time has like been flying and you can't believe that, it's already been so many years being a part of the program. I was thinking the same thing like ahead of, our conversation today and thinking about, the things that I wanted to ask you. And I remember reading your application when you first applied too, and it feels like that was like so long ago, but also feels like it just happened. Like in my mind, I feel like you should still be a freshman. Should still be your
Yeah,
first,
for
like
sure.
you're really creeping up on graduation in the near future, and that's just like that's so crazy to me because I like I said, I remember reading your application and being like, oh yeah, Alecko is a good fit. Like he'll for sure be a great representation of this group, and he'll for sure be, super involved and a positive impact. And yeah, I can't believe that you're already getting so close to what's next?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And then also too, like just speaking about all of the great things that you do as a scholar, do you have a favorite like service opportunity or project that you've worked on?
I'm so happy you asked that because I was actually thinking about it. I have two that I would say that like are just not by and far my favorite, but the first one would be when we were restoring the graves for the monks. And it was my very first opportunity, and I just thought it was like so amazing to be able to do that because like learning about the history at the same time when we were there. Some of the graves are like Civil War era, and so like it was just so crazy to I don't know be a part of something so much bigger than myself. And then also the food bank at the Grove. I've probably done that one the most. I think I've done it like 3 or 4 times, and it's just when you think of Westmoreland County, you wouldn't think like is it's a particularly like impoverished area because it's not, but the amount of cars that there are, it's just it really puts things into perspective, like on how and I don't. It just made me more empathetic, I guess I'd say.
And speaking of both of your points, like for those monks, like I don't know, I my great uncle is buried there, so it makes it a little more special to be able to clean the crosses for the monks. And I'm sure there's lots of families that do appreciate it because these monks travel from far and wide to come to Saint Vincent and the seminary, so it does mean a lot for those who aren't able to come out. But and that, and then also just the organization of the food pantry. I was just talking to Sarah about it, I think yesterday. Um, they recently had one. Usually we have it at this the Grove at St. Vincent, but yesterday or the day before they had it at the airport and they were packing boxes and giving them out at the airport. And just the amount of people that come out to both receive and help out, and then just the organization of it all is amazing. It kind of feels like that episode of I Love Lucy, and this is taking it back. I equate it to when they're like packing the sushi. There's something else on Drake and Josh where they do the
I know
same thing.
exactly what you're talking about.
Right? Because it's so organized and you're all like assigned a food and you like put the food in the box. I don't know. I agree. The food pantry event is one of my favorites to do,
I
both
also
as a
love,
scholar.
yeah, I also love at the food pantry because it's like in partnership with another local church that there are, the older ladies that always go every single week and that's like their thing. And when they're like, okay, everybody get their spots. And then there's like the ladies that are like, I'm on pasta. Don't you dare touch the pasta
Yeah.
station. That's my station. Or like, I'm on the canned soup. That's my spot. Don't even come close. So they take it very seriously. And then for those listening who might not be familiar with what we're talking about with the cross refurbishing, on the campus of St. Vincent, we have a monastery, we have a cemetery, and that the cemetery is where a lot of the monks are buried from, our monastery here on campus. And the scholars had an opportunity. It was like maybe 2 or 3 years in a row that we were able to do it. We were able to refurbish some of the crosses of where some of the monks are buried. And that was part of like a larger project. The scholars were one group of a couple of different groups on campus that helped out with that project. But yeah, cleaned them up, refurbished them. Um, And yeah, that was a lot of fun. I really had a good time with that one too. And I remember this past semester, I reached out to the person who kind of led the charge on that, and I was like, "Oh, the scholars want to do that again. Like we've gotten so much positive feedback. They really enjoyed it." And he was like, "Actually, they did such a good job that it's actually done. Like they're all refurbished now." And I was like, "Oh man, like that's great, but oh man." So yeah, I think that one was definitely a favorite for several students.
Yeah, and we haven't done it like I think you said this like in 2 years, and we still have people asking about it and saying it's their favorite thing. So I don't know that is a fun that was a fun project to work on. Um, but anyway, kind of backtracking a little bit to talk about your majors and your minor. But why did you decide to pick like criminology and psych as like a major and go down that route?
Yeah, I wish I had some inspirational story on what led me to pursue my majors, but honestly, in high school, my biggest fear was working a desk job. So I actually came to St. Vincent undeclared, and then I took a intro to criminology class with Dr. Koshin, and I was like, wow, like this is super interesting. And then criminology on its own, like it's good, but I wanted to pair it with something else. So I took one psych class, and I was like, I love this too. Like I like knowing about like kind of the inner processes of like the mind and stuff like that. It's like a particular interest of mine. So I'm really happy with how like that's worked out so far.
No,
Yeah, that's a fair fear of working a desk job, I feel like. I feel like a lot of
as you sit at a desk.
right, as we all sit at desks and having
Yeah.
this conversation. But I feel like that's pretty fair, especially for people who like really feel a calling to be a helper in some capacity. More likely than not, it's like a hands-on kind of helping, and you want to be like active in the field, whatever field it is that you're going into. And so that leads me to ask you, we talk a lot about being a helper when we think about Fred, and obviously this podcast is called Listen to the Helpers. We want to hear the perspective of helpers, but what do you think it means to be a helper?
So I would say a lot of people kind of have this idea that being a helper is something that's like amazing and you come in flying with a cape and you save the day. But I always like to think of it as something that's a lot more practical and a lot smaller. I think the biggest part of it is helping people feel seen. So like for me personally, like the greatest and like most impactful way that I can help every day is just even saying something like good morning to someone or, giving them a small compliment about something like that. And it's not always like the biggest thing in the world, but like if it puts a smile on someone's face, like I would say that's more than enough, like at least for like a small act like that. I think it's just very, very small things that can make a big difference over time.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And sometimes those small things can be overlooked, but to the receivers of those small acts of kindness, they can feel really, really big. So I think that's really important. I'm wondering, thinking about, what you think of as a helper, thinking about how you're going into a helping career. You're already in a helping position with your work at Adelphi and all of the other things that you do. Um, I'm wondering, like, what do you imagine taking from, like, specifically your experience in the Fred Rogers Scholars and, like, your knowledge of Fred? What do you imagine taking from that into, like, beyond graduation, that work and, like, hopefully being a detective one day, what you talked about, like, your future path? Like, what do you imagine, like, the Fred through line will be?
Okay, this is a good question. I like it. I would say like the number one thing for me is like at the center of law enforcement, in my opinion, is they are public servants. So like the biggest thing that like a public servant would do is serve the community and try to make it a better place. And I'm like so big on the idea of the community as a protective factor, like especially, for like disadvantaged individuals or individuals in broken households. I think having a strong community is one of the most important things that you could possibly have. So, from Fred's perspective, I know he would agree. He was super big on the neighborhood and everyone's like it's a brotherhood, really. So, I think that is by far the biggest thing for me. Just like kind of looking out for each other and making everyone feel safe. That's so important.
That was a wonderful answer. I know I really put you on the spot with that one, but that was a really great answer, and that is so important. And I think what you're describing is like community, neighborhood, brotherhood, like that is very Fred to a T. So I'm really excited to see what comes next for you and how you'll put those things into action.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited too.
And the idea of being like a public servant and serving the community, which I feel like is one of those things that is already unseen about like people that are detectives and in the force. But is there anything else that you wish people knew about the field you want to go into?
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I think a lot of people think law enforcement and like they see state troopers and stuff. It's like kind of like officers try to be the Marlboro man sometimes. Like they come in and they're like they have their sunglasses on and like the pointy hat, and they think like I don't know. I think some people might go into the profession for the wrong reason, and I think it's like very important to abandon the simplistic view of law enforcement because it's so much more than that. And that's like kind of why I said public servant. It's not about like being the hero who saves the day, and like sometimes it is, but more often than not it's a very mundane. I said I'm afraid of the office job, but it's a lot of paperwork and stuff like that. So I think it's very important to go into it for the right reasons.
Yeah, that is so important. And I'm glad that you said that sometimes there are people who don't go into whatever profession for what might be considered the right reasons, but we're thankful for people like you who are going into it for the right reasons, who want to genuinely serve the community. Um, do you hope to stay like in the Western Pennsylvania area, or are you looking to like potentially branch out? Are you considering like kind of one of those like whatever pops up, you'll take it kind of thing? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so it's definitely a little bit of both. I think starting out, because it'll be such a big adjustment going into my professional career, I think I would like to stay like close to home, so more comfortable. But if like a unpassable opportunity came about, then and I had to move like to DC or across the country, I would definitely consider doing it.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool to know. Um, well, this has been a really wonderful conversation. Is there anything else that you want to add? Any final thoughts for anyone listening?
Yeah. I mean, I know it's so basic, but I think just like kindness and helping is for the most part free. Like it only takes a second of your day sometimes to really just have a positive impact on someone. And I think that's like the most important overlooked thing about helping.
That's beautiful. That's a perfect way to end. And I'm going to speak for Kenzie and myself and say that in a couple of years, once you're post graduation and settling into whatever career path the world takes you on, we would love to have you back for another episode to talk about like actual in the field, whatever is going on at that moment for you. I think that'd be really cool to have a then and now kind of situation. But thank you
I
so
would
much.
love that.
Yeah, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. We're thankful that you took some time to share your story with us, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you. And we love having you in the Scholars, so we're biased that this is going to be the best episode of the season.
Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a good one. Thank you for having me on.
I always love getting to talk to Alecko, and I know that we have so many students in the Fred Rogers Scholars Program that we don't always get like one-on-one time with Alecko, but that was really such a gift to be able to sit down and talk to him more in detail about like what he's doing, what he hopes to do, his experience in the Fred Rogers Scholars. That was just wonderful.
Yeah, and I'd say, I mean, all of our Fred Rogers scholars are amazing and wonderful and engaged, but Alecko is one of the ones I think of when we think about like who is truly like a Fred Rogers scholar on campus, who represents the scholars well. It is Alecko is one of them.
It's
So it was great to sit down and talk to him.
I love that he said kindness is free. Kindness and helping are free.
Right, and it could be no matter the size, you could do little acts of kindness like paying for the coffee for someone behind you, or bigger acts of kindness like, I don't know, starting a service project in your own area.
Yeah, I just like the small moments. I said this to him after he said that, but I like thinking about how like things that might seem small to us might make or break somebody's day.
So even like the work at the food pantry, like you spend maybe an hour or two of your day helping someone have groceries for the next couple of weeks. Like something
Absolutely.
as small as that is so important.
Yeah, and like you said, it's just an hour or two of the volunteer's time, but to the person receiving that act of kindness, that's a huge thing. That's not a little insignificant thing to them. That really is making such a big difference for them.
Sarah, did a specific fundamental come up at all when we were talking to Alecko?
So I'm thinking about trust and a sense of trust when I think about everything that Alecko shared in terms of why he's doing what he wants to do, what he hopes to do, and that his answer to the question about like how he hopes to bring Fred's legacy into his future career path. Um, it really has me thinking about a sense of trust with him talking about a sense of community, a sense of neighborhood. I like that he even went as far to say like a brotherhood. Um, I feel like to be a public servant, to be in law enforcement, you have a really important responsibility to create a sense of trust with the people that you're serving to be able to serve them well. And I think knowing Alecko personally and hearing how he talked about his career path and his field of study today, um, I have no doubt that he will put in the work to create that sense of trust to really be a positive impact in whatever community he's serving. What do you think, Kenzie?
Oh my gosh, I totally agree. And also, a sense of self-worth was actually another fundamental that came up in my mind as well. Just because, especially in his interactions with like the Latrobe community and St. Vincent community, as well as I'm sure the kids that he works with at Adelphi, he's definitely someone who tries to uphold, like hold up and also support others and make them realize what their own self-worth is. And just because he's also just so confident in himself as well.
Yeah.
That's especially something that stuck out to me.
Yeah, I that's a great point. And I even think a sense of trust relates to his work at Adelphi too, like you mentioned with a sense of self-worth. I think I can only imagine what a positive presence he is in that community of young people at Adelphi, um, to create a sense of trust and then to use that to uplift their sense of self-worth. I think, like you said before, I think he's an excellent representation of the Fred Rogers Scholars. He's an excellent representation of St. Vincent. He will be an excellent representation of law enforcement, I can imagine. And for those listening who might not be familiar with the Fred Rogers Scholars Program, at Saint Vincent College, we have the Fred Rogers Scholars, which is a program for undergraduate students of Saint Vincent. We open it up to students of any major, any field of study. The one requirement is that they have to be interested in serving youth, children, families in some capacity beyond graduation. So we have criminology majors like Alecko, we have education majors, history majors. We have a wide range of students who are interested in a wide variety of fields. They are interested in becoming the next generation of helpers. If you are a student at St. Vincent, or you know a student at St. Vincent, or you know a potential student at St. Vincent who is interested in the Fred Rogers Scholars Program, each year in March, we open up applications for rising upperclassmen, so rising sophomores, juniors, and seniors at St. Vincent, to potentially join the Fred Rogers Scholars. And each year, we also have open applications for incoming freshmen who are coming to St. Vincent for the very first time. If you are an incoming freshman or know an incoming freshman, contact your college admissions counselor at St. Vincent and they will be able to get you all of the information you need. You can always reach out to us at the Fred Rogers Institute if you have more questions about the scholars in particular. If you're interested in supporting any of the scholars' endeavors or service projects or community outreach, please reach out. Let us know if you'd like to support us in that way. Kenzie, is there anything else you want to add about this conversation with Alecko?
No, I don't think so. Thank you again, Alecko, for joining us and for being such a wonderful scholar. The Fred Rogers Institute advances the legacy of Fred Rogers by investing in the strengths of families and caring adults to support the healthy development of children. To learn more about the Fred Rogers Institute and our initiatives, visit fredrogersinstitute.org and follow the Fred Rogers Institute on Instagram, Facebook, and X.